Well, it's starting to dry out across the state, but we're still feeling the effects of the rain and the recent flooding. And Kris, some of the effects that we're feeling that from is from hay.
Sure. So our hay producers, it took a lot longer to get into the hay fields for the first cutting just because the fields were so wet, which is now backed up their second cutting. And so our horse owners really need to think about maybe their hay supplies or their normal supplier may not actually produce as much this year as in years past.
And what about the hay that had already been cut that had maybe been laying out in the fields? We all saw the pictures of, flooding just all the way up to the tops of them.
Oh, sure. I know when I was driving around, you would see hay bales that were half submerged in the floodwaters. And so we really encourage people do not feed those as a food supply for animals. We don't know what contaminants are actually in those floodwaters. So all of that moisture content too and the fermentation that would have taken place in the spoilage, those aren't going to be suitable feedstuffs anymore.
And even though they're not suitable feedstuff, they're actually not really safe for humans as well. If they're, they're affecting the animal, they probably affect us as well.
Well, yeah, even if we're not talking about hay that was saturated, like standing halfway deep, even if it was really, really wet, you probably have a pretty good chance there are molds in there, spores that can really affect animal health. So you may see decreased performance with them if they're trying to eat moldy feed. If animals are inside moldy feed, that's really hard on their respiratory systems. And yes, our humans, if you're having to handle that a lot, it can affect you too.
In regards of disposal of that hay that's just laying out in the field, what should people do?
So that's a good question because, right now we're harvesting hay and they need to put those round bales up and need to get those old spoiled bales out of the way. So there's a couple different avenues. It actually is good compost material, so you can think about composting that hay. We'd encourage people to maybe even find some folks that need hay for composting. Our bigger farms that might compost their mortalities, this is a great use of that carbon source to help them out. Also for construction where they're trying to deal with erosion, roadways, etc. So there actually may be people out there that find some value in your spoiled hay. So because of all of our, strange weather conditions this year, people really do need to be thinking about their hay supply, even if you weren't in the middle of the flooding zone. So just my own personal story, the gentleman that I get my hay from every year, I picked up some hay because I knew it's probably time to start calling ahead. And he has nowhere near the amount of hay already put up this time of year now as compared to years in the past. So people really need to think about that and don't just put it off until later when you have to buy your hay supply through the winter. You may need to be thinking about increased prices, supply, and certainly as we go down the road, we may need to think about alternative forage sources.
Alrighty, thanks, Kris. Kris Hiney, Extension Equine Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.